So we're going to go now to Dale Wolford's garden in Castro Valley. And Dale is a longtime Bringing Back the Natives Garden Tour participant, and he was ready for the lawn and junipers to be replaced by a garden that would conserve water, be colorful, attract bees and butterflies, and have a more formal look than one often sees with native plant gardens. Dale began the transformation of his garden by attending the tour's How to Sheet Mulch Your Lawn Away and Get Paid for It Too workshop. Then he came home and converted his own lawn with cardboard and wood chips. A rebate from the East Bay Municipal Utility District helped to pay for this project. The garden was designed and installed by Middlebrook Gardens. And this is a photo of the Verbena de la Mina that Jen just mentioned she wished she had put more of in her garden. Here are some annual wildflowers that come back in this garden. It doesn't show up in these photos, but these plants were planted on mounds, and the raised planting areas provide the drainage that most native needs. And they help to retain rainwater on site, which keeps this garden green longer and helps replenish the water table. So let's go now to see Dale in his garden.
Good morning.
Good morning, Dale. How are you?
I'm quite well. How are you?
Good, thank you. Thanks for taking us on a tour of your garden.
I'm happy to be here.
Okay. So go ahead, Dale. It's over to you now.
All right. Well, welcome, everybody. I was really enjoying the previous presentation. Very energetic. Hopefully, I can be just as energetic. Hopefully, my voice will hold up, too. It's funny. I've got a little creak in my throat, so bear with me today. But I'm happy to be here today and show you my garden. It's been a process for me. I remember when I was beginning to learn about native gardens and the plants and things that you would use. And when we moved into this house 10 years ago, we, the front yard, well, let me show you what it looked like. I'll give you a picture of it. So Kathy showed that earlier, but this is what the yard looked like with lawn and junipers. And then we converted it to this with the help of Alry Middlebrook of Middlebrook Gardens. So the way I got to this was going to native tour for 3 years, learning a lot, feeling confused, not sure what to do. Well, we have a fairly large front lawn. And so it was difficult for me to imagine it, which is why I went with Alry Middlebrook. And I had gone to Fioli Gardens over on the peninsula near Woodside, and they have a lot of English gardens, but they also had an area with native garden plants that they had groomed, that were pruned in shapes and colors and things. And I was like, you know, that's what I like. I'm not so much into the wild look that a lot of native gardens have, which makes sense because they're native. So I wanted something that was a little more on the groomed side. And I told Alry, I said, I'm happy to prune. I'm happy to take care of those things because I enjoy that. And so we ended up with this. So I'll walk over here to the center of the yard. And you can see that Kathy had mentioned it's designed with concentric mounds. You know what I'll do? They're hard to see now that the plants are in, but I'll show you the original drawing that Alry did. And you can see the shapes of those mounds and how they're laid out with a dry tree in the middle. And I'll pull back up again. And so you can see the dry tree, which collects water. It also adds a visual interest to the yard. And as Kathy mentioned, these plants, because of the mounds, think they're on hillsides, which helps them for drainage and keeping the water, taking care of everything to do with the watering. My favorite plants in the yard have become the dwarf coyote bush, which you can see the green coyote bushes back there. We have them here, and then we have them here as well. And I prune these a couple of times a year. Coyote bushes can get quite large. I'll just show you the card so you can see the name of the plant, where it comes from. Because I've had people visit the tour in the past to visit my yard, and they're like, those are coyote bushes? Yes. Oh, they're not that big, and because they do get quite large out in the wild. And so these are dwarf species, and they all year round, they just look beautiful. This year in particular, they've really, the colors have really begun to pop, and the shapes and things to go with that. The other element we have a lot of is the California Fuchsia, which Jen and forget his last name, her name, also have in their yard. And you can see that here, it's over there as well. And this will start to bloom in about a month. And you'll have this beautiful red-orange flowers, and they'll last all the way into the fall. Here's the name. I'll give you the card so you can see that. Give you a sense of it. And one of the things I'll tell you about this plant, the key is pruning it to about 1 to 2 inches from the root. I mean, literally, in the fall, I'll prune these, and there's nothing here. It's just the black mulch. And it always amazes me how they come back. You can see this year, especially, they've done quite well. I can't wait till they start to bloom. So let's move over. Let me explain the 3 areas that Alri designed. This area we're looking at here, she calls the color field. And then we move over to the area in front of the front porch. That's the succulent garden. And then to the left of my driveway, underneath the big oak tree, is the shade garden. So we'll kind of look around and see some of those things as we walk through the yard. These are some of the native plants, or sorry, flowers. I get these from Larner Seas. This was suggested by Kathy when she came to visit the first time to see my garden. And I plant these in the fall, and then they just take off. And they do come back every year, but I replanted again this last year because they weren't doing quite as well. And it really adds a lot of color in the spring, because the only plants I really have that provide color in the spring are the lilac verbenas, and we'll see some of those in a minute. So I want to walk around over here. We'll start with the shade garden. We have a couple of dwarf coyote bushes, one of my 2 remaining Winifred Gilman sages. They haven't done that well, and I've started replacing them. Either moles get them, or they just don't seem to like the yard that well. A couple of things that Alri had recommended, well, that we planted. And by the way, Middlebrook Gardens did the landscaping as well as the design. But Alri had recommended kind of a shade, a barrier between my yard and my neighbor's yard, was to put in the holly leaf cherry. A lot of people really love these plants. I know they're on the list for butterflies and bees, or for butterflies, but they haven't done very well here. They're nice, but they've hardly grown at all. They're basically the same size as when we planted them. It's been 4 years ago now. But these have done really well. The old La Rochette coral bells. I'll give you a view of the card. And they bloom for quite a while. I'll show you. We have both some pink variety flowers here and some that are more white. So a little bit of a mixture of the 2. Then over here, I have a nice little mound of Douglas iris. And they're just looking beautiful right now. See the flowers doing quite well. And I'll go down and show you the card. Okay, if I can get it to turn for us. Here we go, sorry. There we go. Oops, it's not behaving. There we are. Oops, one more time. Sorry about that. Get my gimbal to behave itself. And then to replace the holly leaf cherries, I put in, on the recommendation of Watershed Nurseries up in Richmond, a toyon. And we're doing an experiment to see how it's done. It's already grown twice as big since I planted it last fall. So I'm really happy with that. May have potential. And if it does well, I'm gonna replace the other 2 holly leaf cherries with the toyon. All right, so now let's move so I can get this thing to behave. Sorry. Here we go. Ta-da. There we are. Now, Let's move next to the succulent garden. And obviously that, the Japanese maple, is not a succulent. In the original plan, we were supposed to move the Japanese maples to the other side of the yard, but the landscaper, when he got here, he goes, you know, if you move that plant, you'll kill it. And it's a very valuable plant. So we decided to keep it here, which has made I have to water it by hand every so often. But we'll take a look now at the succulents that are in the succulent garden. We have the lance leaf live forever, which is, there's several live forevers in the succulent garden. Give you a good shot of that. Sorry, there we go. Has some pretty flowers. The hummingbirds like these a lot. They hanging out all the time. Hopefully I'm moving slowly enough not to blur things.
No, you are, Dale. It's fantastic. The reception's great and the card views are perfect. So doing it, and the garden is in focus. You're doing a great job. Thank you.
All right, want to make sure everybody can see. So here's my favorite in the succulent gardens, and these chalk live forevers. They are blooming like crazy right now. Give you a sense of the flowers on them. And then the plant itself. And I just could not be more happy with these. They're very happy in this area. So that's basically, and then I'm working on this area here. It looked much better a couple of years ago. I need to repropagate some. So it's one of those things with the succulents, but we have the Angelina stone crop, which is a nice yellow and green color, kind of a ground cover. And then we have the Caucasian stone crop, which is a popular ground cover as well. So they get a sense of that, what that looks like. They're kind of mixed in between each other. So alternating, pull back so you can kind of see the whole thing. Like I said, I want to repropagate that and get it to fit in together. Now, let's talk about the color field. So start on the outer edge of the color field. This is kind of a friend of the Manzanita family. It's Kinokinik, and it's a very slow growing ground cover. And there's the card for you so you can get the name. And I'm very happy with it. It's spreading out. Like I said, it's grown very slow. This is 4 years of growth in this area, but it's getting there. Oh, and by the way, I forgot to mention a helpful thing. When we put in, or we removed the lawn with the sheet melting that Kathy had recommended, I bought in roll-out cardboard because it was much easier for my yard considering the long runs, and just to get boxes was not going to work. And then I bought some of the black mulch to put on top. And then once the lawn was gone, Middlebrook Gardens took that off and reused that mulch. So you're not just using the mulch for the initial cost. And so that way you get double duty out of it. And then all of the big rocks and stuff, I was lucky enough, they were already in the yard. Even the pebbles that are in the succulent garden were in the yard, and they cleaned them, and then we were able to reuse them. So a lot of the items in the yard, we didn't have to throw away. We were able to use again. All right. Originally, we were going to have some sulfur flower buckwheat. And at the time we did the garden, Alri was not able to get any. So instead, she put in Seaside Buckwheat, which I've seen growing along the coast, especially around Bodega Bay and places like that. And it has a nice little pink flower that will come in another month or so. They sometimes grow volunteer. They'll pop up their own seeds. I have a few. There was one in the middle of the Kinokinik, and I like them, but I need to repropagate them as well. And then we have this big berry Manzanita, which grows very slowly, but I can't wait till about another 10 years, it's going to look gorgeous. It's just a beautiful tree. I'll give you a look at the card for that one. I've got a light on it. It's going to uplight it. I can't wait, like I said, until it gets a little bit bigger. Here's some of the larder seeds that I planted. This didn't do quite as well as the ones that were a little bit further over. And then I mentioned the Winifred Gilman sage. We had a bunch of those. Only 2 remain out of about 10 that were originally planted. And so I've been experimenting with different types of sages. And right now, this is a black sage that was recommended by Sandra Navala Lee from Green Thumb. And I'll talk a little bit more if we have time at the end about my sources. But this is doing well. Give you a shot of the card for that one. And then this is one of my favorite plants in the yard, and it's the Coyote Mint. And it's not for the looks as much as it is for the smell. It just, once they start to bloom, these little purple bulbs of flowers, and they are, I mean, it just, the yard just smells so wonderful once they start to go. And I've got another type here as well that I've replaced a few of the plants with. It's also a Coyote Mint, but a different genus. So very happy with those. Then over here, I have a Canyon Gray Coastal Sagebrush. I had replaced Montero Sagebrush. You'll see a couple on the other parts of the yard. They had not done that well, and these are replacements, and they seem to be doing all right. I planted these a couple of years ago. They're coming through. And I'll give you a nice little view from the driveway of the yard in the distance as you walk up the walkway to the front porch. So we have more California fuchsias as well as the Coyote Mint, and then the Lerner seeds, native. And I'll give you a shot of the California fuchsia. I can't remember if I did that already. I really can't recommend these enough. They're amazing the way they come back after you cut them down to 1 inch. And then here, the other color element in the yard is the lilac verbena. And these, I'm still working on how best to shape them and prune them. I'm finding you really have to cut them back in the fall, even though a lot of the research I did said don't do that, but I've had much better luck with them if I really trim them way back. Otherwise, they get very bushy. And they're doing okay. They don't look as good as they did the first year or two. So just a note about that. And then I've replaced some of those Seaside Buckwheats. This one is a sulfur flower buckwheat, which was originally what Alrie Middlebrook had intended. And it's going to come up with a nice, beautiful yellow flower soon. Right next to it is a Seaside Buckwheat that I thought was dying, and now it's come back to life. And then this is the one I'm really starting to like a lot, which is a Golden Conic Creek sulfur flower. And they're doing really well. I've got a couple of them that I planted just last fall. And so here's the card. Give you a sense of that. And then I believe Jen and her husband had one of these in their yard as well. This is a California sagebrush. Apologize for the handwritten card. I just added these two last fall, and I really like them. They're kind of whimsical in a neat way. They really do well. And then here, I had a few Posa Blue sagebrushes, and this were a lot of the Winifred Gilman sage had originally been. Like I said, they didn't do well, so I replaced them with Posos, and as you can tell, they're doing quite well. They have this beautiful purple flower, and they start blooming now, and will be blooming all the way through the summer, and a beautiful scent as well. I'll come over here and give you a shot of the card. Here we go. Posa Blue. I mean, I could smell them right now. If you were here, you'd get a chance to smell them. And then we'll move over here. More Posa Blues. more dwarf coyote bush, a non-native rosemary, and blanking on what the name of the tree is, but they were there before. Now, this is done so well this year. This is a mock heather. It's just taken off. Beautiful color. Go down and show you the card. Really done well. The key to this plant is making sure you deadhead it, and it always comes back. And I just want to show you one more addition I did 2 years ago, which is experiment, a jelly bean lemon plant. And this is, I can't wait till it gets bigger. There's beautiful colors, beautiful blooms. And there you go. So that's pretty much my garden. I wanted to mention a couple of things about weeds. There's a lot of area here that is open with mulch, and the key is at least 3 inches deep of mulch. I planted the garden in March of 2016, and I added more mulch last year, and I have very few problems with the weeds. So there's no liners underneath this or anything. It's just the 3 inches thick makes the difference. And pruning. I mentioned I prune the coyote bushes a couple of times a year. I prune the pozos way back in the fall. I prune the verbenas back quite a lot. I also, I forgot one other plant I wanted to make sure I mentioned. And that was the Montero Sagebrush. These guys. This was almost dead. And then last fall, I think my secret is pruning. I cut it way back, and it's doing great now. So a lot of things I'm learning. I've read a lot about the different things as far as the pruning and things like that. But for this, they just said cut back the flowerlets, but I cut back the branches because I was about to go. It was almost dead. And now it's done really well. Watering, I water with drip. We have a drip system throughout. First 3 years, I would water for 3 minutes every 3 days. And now, because we're established, the roots are established, I'm watering 5 to 7 days for 3 minutes. And if we have a drought, I can just shut the water off and maybe water once a month. So I can't wait to take advantage of that if we need to. We'll be ready to go. That's basically it. Kathy, do you have any questions for me or anybody else?
So we have a few minutes, but Dale, let me thank you for persevering with the Wi-Fi and the cell phone connection issues. It was clear and beautiful and perfect, and the gimbal worked great. So thank you for putting the effort into that.
Good, I'm glad it worked.
The labels were terrific. Thank you for showing the labels and pointing out your favorite plants. And I have succulent envy. I have not been able to grow succulents the way you have.
I feel lucky.
Well, you've got the magic touch. Stephanie, did you have any questions that you want to come up with, or should we let Dale talk about his sources? He said he had sources of...
Just one quick question, Dale. The annuals, you mentioned the seeds you get.
Yes.
Do you happen to know what those are, or was it a mix?
Yeah, it is a mix. It's the Larner seeds. You can go into the website, Larner seeds. And it's just a native assortment, basically.
Okay, thank you.
You bet.
Dale, did you want to talk about some of your sources?
Yeah. Well, as I mentioned, I found Sandra Nebula Lee. She happened to stop by my garden one day and was taking some pictures, and we met. And she is able to get a lot of plants for me, and she'll even deliver them. She works, her business is called Green Thumb. They're based in San Lorenzo. I love Watershed Nursery in Richmond. And then I also get plants from Middlebrook Gardens down in San Jose, where Alry Middlebrook is based.
Okay, well, Dale, thank you so much. Your garden was beautiful. It was great touring it with you.
Well, it was a pleasure. Good to be able to be a part of it. It really was. Thank you so much.